This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Squiz Kids!
It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Amanda Bauer and it's Friday, October 28. In Squiz Kids Today, 10-year-old climber bags a record, the Socceroos speak out, and the research report every video gamer was hoping for. That's what's making news, kid style.
The lowdown.
Drum roll, please. It's World Teachers' Day! And considering that just a few days ago, a report into education in Australia found that teachers are struggling with unsustainable workloads, we think you should be extra kind towards your teachers today. What does unsustainable workload mean? Well, a workload is the amount of work that you do. And unsustainable means that it's impossible to keep going at that rate. It's too much. In its report, the Grattan Institute surveyed more than 2,000 teachers and found that they were in an almost impossible situation. Now, you might be thinking, but kids are only at school from 8:30ish to 3:30ish. That's much less time at work than other adults I know. Well, take it from me. The hours that a teacher spends with you in the classroom are just the beginning. In most cases, your teachers are having to plan every single lesson they teach you from scratch. They then put hours into creating fun activities to go along with the lesson because that makes the learning enjoyable, which means it has a better chance of sticking in your head. They also have to write up each one of those lesson plans for their boss. They have to read and mark all your work. They have to communicate with your parents. They have to go to a lot of meetings. And teachers are constantly learning themselves, keeping up to date with the latest education techniques and research to make sure they're doing the very best they can to help you learn. But do you know what I think are two of the hardest parts of being a teacher? I spent years as a grade 4 teacher, so I am speaking from experience. Every year, you fall in love with a new batch of students. You call them my kids and you spend more time with them than you do your actual kids. And then all of a sudden, the year is over and they move on. We miss you when you leave. And yes, I said there was one other hard thing. You know how when you want to go to the toilet during class time, you just ask for permission and you go? Well, a teacher isn't allowed to leave kids unsupervised, which means that we can spend a lot of time absolutely busting. Too much information?
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in Scotland, where a 10-year-old girl has become one of the youngest people in the world to climb all of her country's Munros. Now, if you're anything like me yesterday, you hear that and think, what on earth is a Munro? Well, it's any Scottish mountain over 3,000 feet high, which is 914 metres in today's money. They get their name from Sir Hugh Munro, who published a list of all 282 Munros way back in 1891. Quinn Young started bagging Munros with her dad when she was just 4 years old, and she set herself a goal of climbing them all before she finished primary school. She carried all her own gear, and her dad says she never complained once. Seriously? Never over 282 climbs did she ask, "Are we there yet?" Quinn Young, Squiz Kids salutes you.
Sport time.
Do you know what's happening in the country of Qatar starting next month? That's right, it's the event that soccer fans wait 4 long years for, the FIFA World Cup. You might remember that the Australian team, the Socceroos, qualified by the skin of their teeth. And yesterday, the Socceroos became the first World Cup team to release a public statement urging their Qatari hosts to treat their migrant workers better. Migrant workers are people who've been brought in from other countries, in Qatar's case to build soccer stadiums and do other work to prepare for the World Cup. There have been reports of workers in Qatar not being paid for weeks, not being allowed to quit or leave, living in terrible conditions and having to work in dangerously hot temperatures. One newspaper has estimated that 6,500 migrant workers have died while working in Qatar. The government acknowledges that some people have died, but disputes that very high number. And it's not just migrant workers that soccer players are concerned about. England's captain Harry Kane has said he will continue to wear his rainbow armband when he plays in Qatar to show his support for the equal treatment of all people, regardless of their gender or sexuality. That's something the Socceroos, whose video I've linked in your episode notes, are also calling for.
Pop Culture Corner.
And now, the report that every gamer has been waiting for. Researchers have found that kids who play video games do better on brain function tests. Now, before you rush out to play video games before your next test at school, the researchers have emphasised that playing video games didn't necessarily cause kids to do better on tests, but there was an association. They compared a group of 9 and 10-year-olds who played at least 21 hours of video games a week. Crikey, that's an average of 3 hours a day. With kids who played no video games, and they found that the gamers did better on memory and attention tests. However, there was no difference between the two groups' mental health, which does help to rebut the argument that video games are bad for your emotional well-being. I'll put a link to the study in your episode notes on the off chance someone might want to show it to a parent. Now, the other big pop culture news of the day is, of course, Halloween. Many of you may be dressing up, trick-or-treating or going to parties this weekend. And you may also have heard some grown-ups complain that they don't want Halloween to be celebrated in Australia because it's a sign of us becoming too Americanised. But Halloween didn't start out as an American holiday, not by a long shot. To prove it, have a listen to our Squiz Kids shortcut to Halloween, which should play right after this podcast. Shortcuts and Squiz the World are usually only available to subscribers, but it's our little treat. Get it? Trick or treat?
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. Where are the Munros? That is correct. They are in Scotland. Question number 2. Which Australian sports team spoke out about human rights in Qatar? You got it. It was the Socceroos. And question number 3. What nice thing are you going to do for your teacher today? There is absolutely no right answer to that, but I hope you're going to do something lovely.
Shout outs.
It's October 28. Did I mention it was World Teachers' Day? It's also a Friday, and you know what that means. Lots of birthday shout-outs for today and the coming weekend, for which we are going to need the old birthday reggae tune. Hit it! It's a special day for these Squiz Kids celebrating a birthday today. Aria from Forest Lake, Reed from Helensvale, Huxley from Mosman, Jude from the Gold Coast, Benjamin and Sophia from Barden, Bridget from Ashtonfield, Sam from Kincumber, Aspen from Bendock, Xavier from Hornsby, Amelie from Appin, Elle and Piper from Sydney, Annabelle listening over in Washington DC, and Luna listening in Guatemala. And belated birthday shout-outs go to Georgia from Scone and Will from Deniliquin. Not forgetting the Squiz Kids who are celebrating a birthday over the coming weekend. Joey from Wagga Wagga, Emma from Cannon Hill, Harrison from Catherine, Zach from Mermaid Beach, James from Sydney, Veen from Forest Lake, Danielle from Craigburn, Alia from Sydney, and Felix listening over in Tokyo, Japan. And special classroom shout-outs this Friday go to the students at Middle Harbour Public School, and a happy birthday to Mr. Lejeune, to Mrs. Williams' class at Mount Hawthorn Primary School, and to India at Cannon Hill State School, who's leaving today to return to New Zealand. All the best, India. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout out, or if you want a classroom shout out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au, or even easier, fill out the form on our website. That's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. We'll be back again on Monday. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over